I was born into a family that looked perfect from the outside but was deeply fractured behind closed doors. My name is Musa, the second son of Mr. and Mrs. Okoye, a well-known family in Lagos. My father owns several businesses, and my mother comes from a wealthy lineage herself. To the world, we seemed like a family anyone would envy. But within our home, there was an unspoken rule that determined everything. My older brother, Chaik, was the golden child, and I was, well, the shadow. From as far back as I can remember, Chaik was celebrated for everything he did. If he scored well on a test, there would be a feast. If I achieved something remarkable, like winning a regional debate competition, my father would simply pat my head and say, "Good job, Musa, but you can do better." It stung, but over time, I learned to swallow the bitterness. Still, no matter how much I tried, there was no escaping the hierarchy of our family. The tension reached its breaking point on my father's 60th birthday, a day that was supposed to be joyous but turned into the moment that changed everything. The house was filled with friends, family, and influential people. My father had spent weeks planning this celebration. When the speeches were done, he called Chaik and me to stand beside him. With a proud smile, he announced, "Today, I want to reward my sons for their dedication and love. Chaik, you are my firstborn, my pride and joy. You have always made me proud. For that, I am giving you the keys to the new mansion in Banana Island. It's yours to live in, to build your future family in." The crowd erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. Chaik beamed, holding the golden keys like they were a royal crown. My heart pounded as I forced a smile. I told myself maybe, just maybe, my father had something special planned for me too. Then he turned to me and, without any hesitation, pulled out a crisp $10 bill and placed it in my palm. "Musa, here's something for you too. Buy yourself something nice," he said, as if he were giving pocket money to a stranger's child. The room fell silent for a split second. Some guests chuckled awkwardly. My mother shifted uncomfortably, clearly embarrassed, but said nothing. Chaik didn't even try to hide his smirk. $10. That was what my worth was to my father. I felt a deep, burning shame rising in my chest. My hands trembled as I clutched the bill. The humiliation was unbearable, and the longer I stood there, the more suffocated I felt. Without saying a word, I turned and walked out of the hall, my vision blurred by tears. The streets were dark as I wandered aimlessly. I didn't care where I was going, I just needed to get away from that house and everyone inside it. My phone buzzed with calls from my mother, but I ignored them. I walked for nearly an hour, my feet aching, my mind replaying the moment over and over. $10. A mansion for Chaik. $10 for me. It was as if my father had publicly declared, "You are nothing, Musa." As I walked, memories flooded back, the countless times Chaik was defended when he was wrong, and I was punished even when I was innocent. The times I was denied opportunities because, according to my father, we can't waste resources on the second son when the first needs it more. It wasn't just favoritism. It was erasure. By the time I reached a quiet, run-down neighborhood, my anger had cooled into a hollow emptiness. I sat on a broken bench near an old street lamp and stared at the $10 bill. It felt like a cruel joke. Then, a soft voice broke my thoughts. "You look lost, young man." I looked up and saw an old man, probably in his 70s, sitting across from me. His clothes were simple, and his face was weathered with years of hardship, but his eyes were kind. Without meaning to, I poured my heart out to him, everything about my family, my father, the mansion, and the humiliation I had just endured. He listened quietly, nodding occasionally, until I finished. When I was done, he said something I didn't expect. "Musa, life is strange. Sometimes, the gift you think is worthless is the one that will save you. And sometimes, the mansion you envy becomes a prison." I frowned, not understanding. How could $10 save me? "It's nothing." The old man smiled faintly. "It's not the amount that matters. It's what you do with it. Remember, the richest man is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. I didn't reply. His words felt cryptic, almost meaningless, but somehow they stayed with me. As I stood to leave, the old man reached into his pocket and handed me a small folded piece of paper. Take this, Musa. If you ever feel completely lost, open it. I didn't want to seem rude, so I accepted it and tucked it into my pocket. Then I began the long walk home, still unsure what I would say to my family when I arrived. When I got back, the party was over. The house was quiet, except for the muffled laughter coming from Chaik's room as he spoke on the phone. My mother sat on the couch, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Musa, she said softly, I'm so sorry about what happened today. Your father, he has his ways, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't. My father had made his feelings painfully clear. Don't apologize for him, Mama, I said, my voice breaking. Some wounds can't be covered with excuses. I went to bed that night feeling completely defeated. The next morning, a storm broke loose. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls and messages. My mother rushed into my room, pale and trembling. Musa, wake up! There's been an accident. My heart lurched. What happened? Tears streamed down her face as she choked out the words. It's Chaik. There was a fire at the mansion last night. They say he's gone. I froze, my mind spinning. Gone? Just like that? The mansion my father had given him, the symbol of everything I didn't have, had become his tomb. The image of the old man's words from last night slammed into me like a physical blow. Sometimes, the mansion you envy becomes a prison. As we sat in the hospital waiting room later that day, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded piece of paper the old man had given me. My hands trembled as I opened it. There were only 5 words written inside. Walk away and you'll see. At first, I didn't understand. Then, slowly, it hit me. If I had stayed in that house, jealous and bitter, clinging to what I didn't have, maybe my fate would have been tied to Chaik's. Maybe I would have been in that mansion too, and I wouldn't be here now. The $10 wasn't just money. It was freedom. A chance to step away and survive. That night, my father sat in silence, broken and grieving. For the first time, he looked at me, not as a disappointment, not as the forgotten son, but as someone he needed. Musa, he whispered hoarsely, I don't know why God spared you, but I'm glad he did. I stared at him, my emotions tangled in ways I couldn't explain. Part of me still ached for all the years of pain, but another part realized something profound. Sometimes, what looks like rejection is protection. I had walked away with nothing but $10, yet that walk had saved my life. From that day on, I stopped chasing my father's approval. Instead, I built my own path, one step at a time. And as I grew older, I understood the truth the old man had tried to teach me. The value of a gift isn't in its size, but in the wisdom it brings. Because sometimes, losing everything you thought you wanted is the only way to gain everything you truly need. The days following Chaik's death were a blur of mourning, confusion, and hushed conversations. People filled our home, offering condolences, whispering theories about what had caused the fire at the mansion. Some said it was faulty wiring. Others hinted at foul play, jealousy from business rivals of my father. But what unsettled me most was my father's behavior. He was completely shattered. The once proud, commanding man now sat hunched in silence, his face pale and aged overnight. For the first time, he seemed vulnerable. Late one evening, as I walked past his study, I heard muffled sobs. My father, this man who had always demanded perfection and strength, was crying. I wanted to comfort him, but there was a part of me that hesitated. This was the same man who had humiliated me, who had made me feel invisible my whole life. Yet, as I stood there, I realized that grief had leveled us. Without knocking, I stepped inside. He looked up, startled. His eyes were red, his voice cracked. Musa. I failed. I failed as a father. I froze. I had never heard such words from him. Papa, don't blame yourself. It wasn't your fault. He shook his head violently. No, Musa, you don't understand. I built everything for Chaik. The businesses, the house, even the mansion, everything was for him. I thought if I gave him the world, he would honor me, carry on my legacy. But in doing so, I neglected you. I turned my back on my other son. My chest tightened. Papa. Let me finish, he interrupted. The night before the fire, Chaik came to me. He was troubled. He said he'd made mistakes, that he'd gotten involved with people who were dangerous. I didn't listen. I told him to handle it himself because I was too proud to admit I'd spoiled him. His voice broke as tears streamed down his face. Now he's gone, and I can't fix it. A heavy silence settled between us. I wanted to be angry, to throw his neglect back at him, but instead, I felt an unexpected sense of compassion. Papa, I said quietly, you can't change the past. But you can still change how you treat the living. He looked at me with a mix of sorrow and hope. I want to try, Musa. I want to be a better father to you, if you'll let me. For the first time in my life, I saw sincerity in his eyes. I nodded slowly. We'll take it one step at a time. In the weeks that followed, my father began making small but significant changes. He asked for my opinion in family matters, included me in business discussions, and even apologized publicly for how he had treated me at his birthday party. People were shocked. Some relatives couldn't believe the shift, but I didn't care what they thought. Still, something didn't sit right with me. Chaik's death haunted me. His final hours, the mysterious fire, and the old man's cryptic words gnawed at the edges of my mind. One evening, I pulled out the folded piece of paper the old man had given me. Walk away and you'll see. I read the words over and over, trying to make sense of them. That's when I remembered something strange. The old man knew my name. I had never introduced myself, yet he spoke it as if he'd always known me. Who was he? And why did his warning seem so personal? Driven by unease, I decided to visit the ruins of the mansion. The authorities had finished their investigation, ruling it as an accident caused by an electrical fault, but I wasn't convinced. When I arrived, the once grand mansion was nothing but charred remains. The air smelled of smoke and damp ash. As I walked through the wreckage, my stomach knotted. In one corner, near what used to be the study, I found something half-burned but recognizable, a ledger, filled with names, numbers, and strange symbols. As I flipped through it, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just random scribbles. It was a record of illegal dealings, money laundering, blackmail, and even names of powerful people in politics and business. Chaik had been involved in something dangerous, something far bigger than I imagined. Suddenly, the fire didn't seem like an accident. I tucked the ledger into my bag and hurried home, my heart racing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The pieces were coming together, Chaik's troubled confession to our father, the mysterious fire, and the old man's warning. But what terrified me most was the realization that whoever was behind this might not be done. If they suspected Chaik had shared information with someone, I could be next. I had walked away from the mansion with nothing but $10, and maybe that had saved me once. But now, walking away might not be enough. The past wasn't finished with me. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next. The following days were a blur of fear and paranoia. Every time I left the house, I felt eyes on me. A car seemed to trail me when I went to the market. Strangers loitered near our gate a little too long before walking away. I couldn't share my suspicions with my father or mother. They were still mourning Chaik, and I didn't want to add to their pain. But deep inside, I knew the truth, Chaik hadn't died by accident. Someone had wanted him silenced, and now that same someone might come after me. The ledger I'd found was hidden under a loose floorboard in my room. Every night, I read through its contents, and the deeper I dug, the more horrifying it became. Chaik hadn't just been dabbling in shady dealings. He had been working with a powerful criminal network, laundering money through some of my father's businesses without his knowledge. Names of politicians, high-ranking officers, and even family friends were all listed. And then, one night, I saw something that made my blood run cold. At the bottom of a page, written in hurried handwriting, was a single note. If anything happens to me, they will come for Musa next. Protect him. My breath caught in my throat. Chaik had known he was in danger. And even with all his flaws, even after a lifetime of being my rival, he had tried to save me. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. The next morning, I took the ledger and went to the only person who might help me, the old man I'd met the night of the party. I found him sitting on the same broken bench under the dim street lamp, as if he had been waiting for me all along. "You came back," he said with a faint smile. "I need answers," I said, my voice shaking. "Who are you? And how did you know what would happen to me?" The old man's expression grew serious. "My name is Ibrahim. Years ago, I worked for the same people Chaik got involved with. I know how they operate and how they destroy families." He pointed to the ledger in my hand. "That book is dangerous, Musa. They'll kill to keep its secrets buried." "Why warn me then?" I asked, confused. His gaze softened. "Because I once failed to protect my own son. He died because of them. I couldn't save him, but maybe I can save you." A lump formed in my throat. "What should I do?" "Leave," he said firmly. "Tonight. Take your mother and father and disappear. Sell nothing, pack nothing. Just go. If you stay, you'll all be targets." It sounded insane, but deep down, I knew he was right. That evening, I told my parents everything. At first, they didn't believe me. My father grew angry, insisting Chaik's death had been a tragic accident. But when I showed him the ledger and the note Chaik had left, the fight drained from his face. He sank into a chair, trembling. "My God, what have we done?" My mother began to cry, clutching my arm. "Musa, what do we do now?" I repeated Ibrahim's words, "We leave tonight." We packed only the essentials and fled under the cover of darkness. As we drove away from Lagos, I glanced back one last time. The life we had built, the wealth, the status, all of it was gone. But for the first time, I felt a strange sense of peace. A year later, we were living quietly in a small coastal town, far from the chaos we'd left behind. My father worked as a simple fisherman now, and for the first time, he seemed genuinely happy. One evening, as the sun set over the water, he turned to me and said, "Musa, I used to think wealth was the only legacy worth leaving behind. But I was wrong. You were right all along. The greatest gift I could have given was my time, my love." I smiled, tears filling my eyes. "It's never too late, Papa." Sometimes, I still think about Chaik. Despite our rivalry, he saved my life in the end. The $10 my father gave me that night had felt like an insult, but now I saw it for what it truly was, a push to walk away, to survive. The mansion, the riches, the favoritism, none of it mattered anymore. Because sometimes, the things you envy most are the very things that can destroy you. And sometimes, what feels like rejection is really protection in disguise. As the waves crashed against the shore, I silently thanked the brother I had lost, the old man who had guided me, and even the $10 bill that had set me on the path to life. "You,"